Hello fight fans and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest today is a welterweight MMA athlete who is signed under Bellator Promotions with a professional record of 8 wins and only 2 defeats. And his amateur record, he had 7 wins with 0 defeats. Mr. Ashley, the Beast Reece. Welcome, my friend. Nice to have you on the podcast.
Okay, mate. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you.
It's been really cool having you on. I was really looking forward to this. First thing I want to ask you, Ashley, the fight name itself, The Beast, can you tell myself and the viewers where that came about?
It come from Adam Tay. I think my first fight under FCC, I fought a lad named Dean Gaskell, and he'd come from a rugby background, and it was a really hard fight. And afterwards, he said, "Bloody hell, Ash, that was an hard fight for you." He said, "Like, I'm surprised how well you did." He said, "A bit of a beast, didn't you?" And then after that, the next fight, there's like, "I might as well call you that." And he just started calling me that, put that on as my nickname. Adam Tay gave me that nickname after one of my fights on FCC, so it sort of stuck. And then every program it was in there, I was like, "Well, I can't really argue with it. Then I'm just gonna have to have that as my nickname then."
And that was a Full Contact Contenders Promotions, one of that Adam's got.
Yeah.
You end up winning a title on there.
Yeah, I won the amateur lightweight title. I defended it 3 times and then turned pro after that.
Now, I know Adam's a bit of a stingy guy. Did he end up giving you the belt?
Yeah, I got 2 belts actually. Yeah, it was just at the time when I had the old belts, and then I was making the new belts, which was really nice. And he said, "Keep the old belt, and I'll get your new belt as well." And then I think my coach Ozzy, he said, if Ash defends his belt after the second time, he's keeping it, and Adam agreed, so I got to keep it, thankfully.
And it's a good promotion, is that? I like FCC.
Yeah, they work well with me, and they give me some hard tests. It wasn't anyone who I'd have easy title defences. He sort of said, "Ash, I want to look for the best guys," and you know that. And I said, "Yeah, of course," and that's what I'm expecting. And same with my coach at the time, was he wanted to give me the hardest test. So
the good thing about having those hard tests and taking those risks is that the reward is sweeter, right?
Yeah. The way my coach Ozzy used to say is that you need to level up every fight. You need to be fighting someone significantly better than you. So every fight's a 50-50 fight. Apart from your first 2 fights, and they're not really 50-50 because you sort of, I don't know, treading water, seeing if you can swim or not. But he said after that, you'll be having 50-50 fights all the time.
The other thing I'd like to know about you, Ashley, is your MMA journey. If you can enlighten myself and the viewers a little bit about when you started getting involved in martial arts, what sort of disciplines, and how you've ended up where you are today.
Yeah, well, I come from a running background originally. I run from the age of like 12 up until I was 20. I moved from London to Manchester at 20 to stay with my dad and live with my dad full time. I think my dad took me to a martial arts store. It's called Van Dang's Martial Arts or something. I think it's not down now, it's flats. And that is where Manchester Ground and Pound was, with Ozzy Hallock and Danny Rogerson. I went in there and looked and was hooked instantly. And I said to my dad, "I want to go there tomorrow." And from there, I trained like 6 days a week. I've trained for 3 years. And after like the 3rd year, he's like, "Ash, well, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you've been training for 3 years. You've not really missed any days off. You've been training like 4 or 5 nights a week. You can keep up with most of the lads and you're not fighting." I said, "Oh, get me a fight then." And within like that week, he'd booked me a fight and said, "Okay, let's just start fighting then."
So did you start training with a mixed martial arts gym, or were you aware of other disciplines beforehand?
No, I was aware of other disciplines. My dad used to box internationally, so I knew about other stuff, but I only really dabbled in everything else because I was running so much. I wasn't really interested. It's only when I sort of moved to Manchester I really started training hard. Like in London, I'd done stuff with Khalid Ismail, the man's name is. I trained with him for a little while, but I'd never really committed. I'd train for up until the weekend, and then I'd go out on a weekend, miss sparring. It was a choice then when you're 18 to 20, you'd either go out or train. And I decided to go out instead. So when I got to Manchester, I didn't have any distractions.
So through the Bellator Promotions, you've had 3 fights. If we can work our way through that. The first fight you had was with a chap called John-Ross Harkin. If you can talk me through how you ended up getting signed with Bellator and the preparation for John's fight and how it went through the fight for us.
Yeah, I was originally signed to ACB. I had some really hard fights on ACB. I think I had about 3 fights in 3 years, or 2 years it was. ACB sort of went from having loads of fights in England to having none, and they sort of moved back to Russia. And I wasn't going to travel to Russia to fight because I was only 5-0 in my career. I didn't think that I didn't need to push myself that much. There's well enough competition in the UK and around the UK to begin with for me to push myself that way. My manager was in contract disputes with ACB. I don't know if they wanted to release me or not because they still wanted to book me fights. And then a few weeks later, my manager rang me and said, "Ash, you got an opportunity at Bellator if you want to fight." I said, "Oh yeah, okay." And he said, "Oh, you'll be fighting in February." I said, "Yeah, no worries, that's all right then." I said, "That'd be good because I'd be able to test myself there as well." And then that fight got booked. And then since then, I was just prepping for a fight. Yeah, he had a bit of a hit and miss record, but he's very heavy-handed. Like I'd seen a lot of his fights where he'd fought lads with a bit more experience than him and better records than him. But because of how heavy his hands were, he'd light them up and rock them, and then they'd end up taking them down and submitting him. So I knew sort of where his weak points were, and I knew what to avoid. In the fight, I think he threw 1 or 2 shots, landed a leg kick, and then off the leg kick, the next time he went to throw a combination, just took him down straight away. Had sort of like the wrist wide position, the 4/4 position, and sort of ground and pounded him until the ref stopped it for the whole round, pretty much. Just allowed him to try and scramble up to his feet, but he just kept giving his back.
Then the second fight you had on Bellator And the second fight you had on Bellator was against Craig Turner. If you can tell me a little bit about what you knew about Craig, your preparation, and how the fight went for us, please.
The Craig Turner fight was a little bit different. I had a new coach then. Someone that I started working with a lot was a man called Jack Willis, pad man. He started off as a pad man, but he ended up being my coach for that fight. We tweaked a few things, and I started mixing my grappling in. So I'm more of a grapple-based fighter with a lot of my wins. A lot of them are through ground and pound. We started mixing my strikes in with my grappling to sort of give someone more of a. They're more confused. They didn't know I'm just going to take them down. So in that fight, I was very much a pressure-based fighter, and I was striking to set up the takedown. That worked well in the fight, and I think I got about 3 takedowns in the fight, and ended up winning the fight by decision. So I was happy with that, and I took hardly any damage. So I was really happy with the short results I had with working with Jack.
By the end of the rounds that you had, were you quietly confident that you had won that fight before the MC announced the judges' results?
Yeah. With my head coach Sean Martin, he's very vocal in between each round. Like if you've lost a round, he'll let you know you've lost a round, and he'll say, "Ash, you up on this? Keep going." And he's literally like, "Just keep doing what you're doing." He'd tell me every round, like the second round, he'd say, "Ash, he's going to get a little bit more desperate round now because he's 2 rounds down." And the third round, he's right, he's going to be all or nothing. So he's going to sort of try and knock you out. So I knew, and you've got to sort of bide your time and when to shoot and then when to throw shots, because you've got to sort of judge on what to do when. I'd say just to fight safe. To fight safe, if you're up, there's no point of taking risks.
And your third fight was against Stefano Paterno. If you can tell us what you knew about Stefano and talk us through the fight, please.
I got that fight on 5 weeks' notice. Stefano's a former Cage Warriors champion. Originally, he's meant to fight one of my old coaches. When I was coached by Khalid Ismail in London, there's also a coach called Galore Bufando, and Stefano was matched to fight Galore. My manager rang me and said Galore's not able to travel to Milan. He said they're looking for an opponent. Would you want me to put your name forward? And I said yes, absolutely. he said, Ash, it's a month from the date that you originally was looking to fight. So I was already in camp and I was preparing for, I think, a month later, like November time. So I'd already have everything set up in my camp, and I was peaking for November. But I just said to my manager, it's all right, it's only another 5 weeks. I'm in good enough fitness now where I can fight tomorrow. But no worries, Ash, I'll get the fight booked and you can fight then. The fight is a hard fight, to be fair. It was a very hard fight. First round, I think I got a shot for a takedown and got busted up a little bit. Was bleeding. I got the takedown in that round. I thought I won that round, but the second round I got rocked, and it was just survival from that round. And the third round is, I think, in the end of the second round, in the corner, the ref said to me, "Actually, if you take any more damage, you're gonna have to stop the fight." So the third round, it was just me trying to figure out how I'm gonna take him down or try and win the fight without taking any damage. So the round was very sort of it's like a feeling out process again, like the first round. It was the third round. I had to try and figure out what to do. I lost by decision. It was closer than I thought. I thought I lost like 30-27, all three judges, but one or two of the judges scored it 29-28. So it was a lot closer than I thought it was.
And if you were to fight Stefano now, knowing what you know, is there anything that you would change in the fight?
No, I don't think so, really. I just think it is just down to timing. He's a lot sharper than me because he was ready for that date. I was ready for a month later, but I'm not someone that will make excuses. I knew that, and I took that fight based on the gamble that I wanted to beat someone who'd been a Cage Warriors champion, and it put me in good stead for number one for my rankings and number two for my position in Bellator. Unfortunately, it didn't pay off, but that's the fight game. You either roll the dice or you don't. And roll the dice, and it didn't come. I didn't win, but never mind. I've just learned from that. I've not really lost anything.
The promotion itself, Bellator, can you tell us from your experience, how is it, and compared to other promotions you've competed on?
It's very good. It's very good. Very good experience. It's professionally run. Everything is down to the T. But my other promotions that I fought for, like ACB, is very similar to that. ACB was run very similarly. But just the attention to detail when they do to things, like you have to be at this place at this time. We're doing this then. They don't cut any corners at all. Even with the food, like in Milan, they'd have so much food ready. They'd have a set menu just for the fighters. So everything was literally, you didn't have to worry about anything. The transport from the airport to getting picked up for your fight to leaving from your fight. Like as soon as I fought, I went to try and see my family, and I see my family for about 30 seconds. I was like, Ashley, I need to go back to the hotel now. Like the venue's shut. They just whisked me off.
Well, that's the great thing about good promotions, where they take care of everything. So your mind is just focused on the fight rather than thinking, what time am I getting picked up? They're 10 minutes late. Where's my food? What's going on? What's wrong with the changing room? There's no mat. This sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, mate, for Milan, I had the best changing room ever. I've never been in the changing room. I was like, wow, this is ridiculous. In my changing room, I had Fedor. I had Hersey Georges, who's had over 150 kickboxing fights. I had Melvin Manhoef in my changing room as well. At the same time, you're like, I'm focusing on the fight here, and these are on. Them lot were on before me. So as I'm seeing them go out to their fights, I'm like, this is getting more realistic and more realistic. But at the same time, I was happy because I sort of, I don't know, one of the most rewarding experiences I've had. The fight co-main event in my third fight on Bellator, I've jumped things quick. I've been stuck in the deep end and thrown in the deep end, but I've enjoyed trying to swim, so it was good.
It must have been awesome being in the room with people like the last Emperor, Melvin Manhoef. For me, it would have just been mind-blowing. How did you keep your composure whilst they were there?
To be fair, Fedor's very quiet. Like, I'm in the changing room, I'm quiet. I keep myself to myself. Fedor's the same. Like, he'll give you a nod and say hello. A lot of the Russians, like Vadim Nedkov, he was fighting that night. I think he was fighting Carvalho, and Fedor was coaching him. And he's very quiet as well. Melvin Manhoef is Melvin Manhoef. I don't think there's anyone else on the planet like him when he warms up. So watching him is very eventful. But at the same time, I'm sort of the opposite. I warm up very slow. I get ready in my own time. I don't push myself where he's like 100 miles an hour for like a good solid hour before. So, but it's a good experience, and I've witnessed that firsthand. It's something that I can remember for the rest of my life.
You mentioned a couple of coaches already. Which coaches or mentors have had a significant impact in your life, in your martial arts career, and why? If you can share that with myself and the viewers, Ashley.
Yeah. Basically, I was with Ozzy Hallett from my first amateur fight up until my third pro fight. He was a very hands-on coach. He did me in very good stead. Sort of the gym we was at, MMA studio, people started going their own separate ways. So I had to move from Ozzy because of the lack of training partners. Nothing to do with his coaching. It's just a lack of training partners, and there was no one to train with anymore. It was just me and him. And if you're a pro fighter, you need other bodies. As bad as it is, you need other bodies. I moved from Ozzy to Sean Martin. That was under Ozzy's decision. Ozzy found someone for me to train under, someone that he agreed that shared the same philosophies as him and trained the same way as him. I trained with Sean, and since I've been with Sean, I've been perfect. I'm based in Stoke-on-Trent at the moment, so I live about 2-hour train journey from Hammer in Liverpool. So I've got coaches in Stoke and I've got coaches in Liverpool. One of my main coaches in Stoke is a guy called Jack Willis. He's very much hands-on as well. We do a lot of striking stuff with him. I've got other separate coaches in Stoke as well. A grappling coach called John Hand. A conditioning coach called Trevor Oliver. He's incredibly hands-on, very science-based. Like he comes to all my fights. He's in my corner a lot of the time because in reality, with strength and conditioning, I'm not somebody that will do stuff 3 days a week. I do strength and conditioning 7 days a week, and everything is based on my data. I'm very much data driven. I've got literally diaries from 11 years ago when I first started. I know what I've at 11 years ago. I know everything that I've done 11 years ago. Everything is down to a T. I look back at everything and I'm very analytical. I'd say my other coaches are Jack's cousin, Danny. He's very much a good pad man as well, and I do a lot of work with him on behind the scenes.
Ashley, you've mentioned quite a few coaches there because it's important to surround yourself with people. With the pandemic and what's going on, it might be difficult for you to travel now. So how are you kind of keeping yourself fight ready during this crazy time that we're in?
With my coaches, I keep very close contact to my coaches. Communications, I think it's a very important thing. So I'll ring my coaches a few days a week for some of them every day. Like Jack and Trevor, I'll probably see them every day. I'll speak to them every day. Sean I'll speak to a few times a week. And I just make sure that all my coaches are on the same page. So I've not got separate coaches. I've got coaches as a joint, as a whole. And that's how, to me, that's how you get the best results, because everyone's working together rather than working against each other.
Of all the fights that you had, which one sticks in your mind as most rewarding? It doesn't have to be a win or a loss. What was it that was rewarding about a significant fight?
In my second pro fight, I fought a lad called Tobias Reed. He was a prospect like me. Another good matchup from Adam Tay. He was 2-0, I was 2-0, and it was a very hard fight. He had a very unorthodox striking style. I think he hit me with every single punch or kick that you can imagine, spinning back fist, elbows, spinning kicks, everything. At the time, I was coached by Ozzy and Andy Devent. We had a very much takedown style then, and I was hunting for the takedown throughout the fight for the full 15 minutes. I think I must have landed about 30 takedowns. But this special that Tobias Reed is, every single takedown, he got back up to his feet. So it was like a constant grappling exchange from striking. I was striking, I was taking him down, he was standing back up. I was striking with him again, I was taking him down. He stood back up. There wasn't really a minute's rest in the fight. It was just constant exchanges. And if I wasn't exchanging, I was grappling. That was one of the fights where I went back to the corner and it was like, okay, this is a real fight now. It was a good fight. And after the fight, because of the striking exchanges, I didn't think I come off the best. I thought I lost the striking exchanges, and I based that on the fight. I thought I lost the fight. If you watch the video back of the fight, they lift my hand up and I actually shake my head like I've lost this fight. I shouldn't be winning this fight. And in my head, I didn't think I performed up to the ability that I did. But my coach spoke to me after and said, "Actually, did perform to ability. You did. He performed it just as well." That has not changed my mindset. I'm still that driven person where I focus on me rather than my opponent. But at the same time, like sometimes you need to look back in hindsight and see what's actually happened around you.
You're on a MMA conveyor belt and you're working your way up the mountain. There'll be some people who are further down from you, but they're kind of up and coming. Through your experience that you've had over these years, Ashley, what words of advice would you share to those up and coming athletes that are just behind you?
I'd give three. The first one I would say is remain consistent. I see too many lads train. Even in my gym, I own a gym in Stoke. I see too many lads train. They train for a little bit and then they go missing. And they train for a little bit and they go missing. And then a fight card comes on. Ash, can I fight? No, you've not been in the gym. Too many people train just for fight camps. You want to be an athlete and you want to be a professional, you need to act like a professional and train all year round, regardless of what's going on. In between fights is where you get your fitness and where you make improvements. If you're just training to fight camps and you're just getting back to your former level of fitness and your level of skill, you're not actually leveling up. My coach Ozzy, my first coach Ozzy, is very into that. Like even outside the camp, we'd always training, we'd always make tweaks, and even now, like with my conditioning coach, we're always making tweaks. I'm always in the gym. And there's always stuff to work on. There's never anything that I'm not working on, whether it's skill or conditioning. I'm always working on stuff. And even when I've not got a fight booked, I'm just as busy. There's no chill time with me. Like after most fights, like the day after or 2 days after, I'm back to training. I'm back working on things that I've made mistakes on. The second thing I'd say that you need to do is back a lot of your training and stuff on science, and actually jot down the numbers and know what you're doing. Because a lot of people they won't write stuff down. I know what I've done from years ago, and a lot of the time your data will tell you how to put it. Your data will give you hints and stuff to what you do, or what you're either doing right or what you're doing wrong. And a lot of the time it will save so much time with you knowing what you've done right in the past, you knowing what you've done wrong in the past. Like even in regards to weight cutting, I've looked and seen stuff. Oh, that was terrible. I can't believe I used to do that. But I wouldn't know that unless I look back at it. So now that I've known that, I say, okay, then I'll look at stuff that I've done that was good, and I see that I lost 3 key in that day. So maybe I have to do that again, and I'll do that again. And just eliminate the stuff that doesn't work and keep the stuff that does, and just go from there, and you get pretty far. Yeah, last one I would say is think of fighting as a long game. Especially with your coaches, you need to give your coaches time. Give your coaches time to know you, get to know your characteristics, get to know your skill level. Because a lot of people, they'll have a coach for a year or so and then they'll move on. I've only had 2 head coaches. I've had Ozzy for about 5 or 6 years, and I've had Sean, and that's it. That's my only 2 head coaches I've had. My striking coaches and that I pretty much had almost the same striking coaches for a good while now. From when I was amateur up until I was pro. My conditioning coach I've had on for almost 10 years. So I've been working him for 10 years. He knows exactly what's happening. He knows in between rounds what I feel like. He knows what to look out for. If he sees me tired, he knows that I'm tired, but he'll know exactly what to say. With that, you're not going to really you're not really going to gain anything unless you give people time to get to know you and get to know your ins and outs of you. And likewise to them. You need give people time to collect data and stuff, and get to know you like in and out.
You mentioned you've got a gym in Stoke. Do you want to share with us what the gym's called, and is it yourself that just teaches there, or do you have other people around you that teach certain disciplines within MMA?
Yeah, the gym's called Stoke Combat Academy. It's a new gym. I think it's open in January. Not this January, the January before. It's not been open very long because because of lockdown. I think over from like January to March, and it's been shut since. We've got a few different coaches. There's me, Jack Willis. There's another Bellator fighter called Joffrey Holton as well. He comes in and does some coaching. It's a very young team. We're still sort of in there, sort of testing the waters at the moment, trying to find out what works. But I think in a few years' time, it'd be one of them gyms where it'd be a force to reckon with. And getting a lot of input from our head coach Sean. So a lot of the stuff that made Sean successful, he's trying to instill in me. So in a few years' time, I would have cracked what I'm doing, and then we'll be able to open another unit of Hammer.
Have this podcast with us. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one when you've had your fight, as and when that is, and then we'll sit down and spend a little time talking about that fight and then what plans you've got moving forward.
Yep, no worries. That's fine. Thank you.
Ashley, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you soon, my friend.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Cheers.